Hello and welcome back to the 9th mission in my playthrough of the Age of the Ring campaign. Going into the woods of Lothlorien, following Caras Galadhon and the endless dark we spend in the last 2 levels. This level's very different, we get a nice bright setting in Lothlorien, which is quite nice. We try to emulate this, as you see in the picture here, rather than the traditional bluish kind of dark setting you had in Battlefield 1. I'll try to be more positive about this level than I was in the stream, if anybody saw that, because I did lay into it quite harshly. I struggle to be positive about it, but I'll find bits I do like about it, because for some people I know they do enjoy it. Kyle in particular on the team really enjoys it, so I'll try to put a positive spin on it, maybe explain why I struggled making it. But here we are. Starting off with one of the characters obviously we have in Age of the Ring that isn't in the books or the films. Well, she's not in the books as far as I'm aware. I quite like this because it gives us a chance to use these things that we do, take time to model and add in, and it gives them context in the story, which I think gives everything a bit more depth. So yeah, I really enjoy the fact that we start off with
I bring word
Idriel.
from the Lady of Love.
Yeah, that's her name.
A strategic
Not a long
location.
scene,
I
but
will go.
an important one nonetheless.
We cannot linger
Her task
here.
is to make sure Haldir
Without delay.
is aware of the Fellowship
A
approaching,
strategic location.
and it's great. I really
we
like
cannot
it.
linger here. I
So
will go.
this
strategic
to
location.
give context to why maybe I don't
I
like this
will
level.
go.
It was the one I did during Moria. I did try and get away from the constant, overwhelming amount of scripting and mapping that Moria took, and the number of crashes I had. I thought I'd do something bright and different, which is Lothlorien. Always one of my favourite levels in Battlefield 1. It's a real standout.
Elfin grace.
Because you couldn't play elves, obviously, in that game, besides that one level, and it
Without
looked
delay.
good. I liked it. So at one point, the plan was to take an older map I'd made as a standalone thing and convert that, but it was too long, it had too many problems, and it
The
wasn't
shadow
coherent.
cannot prevail.
So we got as far as converting it, looked at it and went, no, it's not worth it, let's
We
scrap
cannot
it, let's do
linger
our
here.
own thing, something unique.
My quest begins.
And around October of last year,
I am needed elsewhere.
I think I started doing the map for this.
Elfin
And it
grace
was an interesting
with
design. It was a very simple map because I didn't want to spend
cannot
too
linger
long,
here.
going overboard with it.
It's time to go.
And it has its
I am needed elsewhere.
pretty parts. I think here, for example,
My quest begins.
looks really good. So I was quite
The
pleased with
shadow
the map.
cannot prevail.
It's a bit hilly, but it's nothing
Into
too
the fray.
bad. For me, it really got difficult once we got to Lothlorien. Because there's, different people have different ideas of what it's meant to look like. In the film, it really is just a bunch of trees on a hill. In the books, it has all this description of the walls that surround it and the gates. It's much more of a fortress kind of vibe. In my head, that's
By the
not how I
light of
see it.
Haldir.
So there was the issue that nobody really,
We
it
cannot
didn't look
linger
like any
here.
of us really wanted it to. Or at least some
It's
of
time
us,
to
I
go.
should say. So
I
there was an
will
issue
go.
with the fact we weren't getting
The
the image
shadow
we were all
cannot
expecting.
prevail.
Or at
A
least I was
strategic
expecting.
location.
I am talking over what's
Without
happening in front of
delay.
me, but just to recap, very simple. These treasures are just there to give you something to find. Just try and make this walk to the camp a little more interesting. We've got the goblin attacks that come down, and the hidden allies that I imagine a lot of people may miss. The tree sentinels, which I should point out, Kyle did for 4.0. I believe it was Kyle. A real standout unit that I love in this
By
level.
the will of Nenya.
Made a difference once he added those in.
Swiftly. Without
But
delay.
yeah, so the battle,
I am needed elsewhere.
seeing as this was supposed to be my way of getting out of Moria,
I will go.
over time, because we kept redoing the battle in so many different ways, Did they approach the bridges randomly? The bridges were positioned differently, so it was harder to defend. And it was so much scripting work to get it working and balanced. And then we'd scrap the whole thing and restart again from scratch with a completely different outlook. And it wore me down completely. It's the one level where I more or less gave up at times doing it. I had to finish it. Of course I had to finish it.
I
And,
bring word from
I
the
still
Lady
put
of
as
Love.
much effort in as I possibly
Without delay.
could
I
to try
will
and
go.
meet the expectations that it had. But to me,
Swiftly.
it was never really what I wanted it to be. I was just happy for it to be over. In truth, the moment it was like, okay, we're done with this, I was very pleased. And the team were very accommodating. They know when I'm struggling with something to get it to work, because they sort of feel the same at times. Though they course, they have to kind of push me to do things sometimes I don't want to do.
We must stand
They're
against
always
the
very
shadow.
complimentary and they're very fair in that
I
they
am needed
work with
elsewhere.
me to make it as easy as it can be. You know what I mean? Because if it was up to me, it wouldn't have many of the features it has now. Because my script, I get nervous about what the hell I can do. I get timid and avoid ideas. But they're, let's call it encouragement, means we get those features which can be standouts. I'll talk about sort of that a bit later. I think focus more on what's happening in front of us. Up to this point, very simple scripting. This battle, to me, this one I really like in its own way, because we get the fellowship in battle. We come into it. There's no delaying, nothing like that. We just go straight into a fight, and quite a tricky fight. And we have obviously our custom Age of the Ring hero, and that's quite neat. We get to incorporate 2 of our custom heroes into a campaign level. You know, give them this setting of the story, and he uses his powers. That was something I learned how to do during this campaign. It isn't complicated, surprisingly. You know, heroes, you can set basically a script, which is basically says whenever this is ready to fire at the nearest whatever, be that enemy unit, specific unit, named unit, team, whatever you define it to be. You make a team for that hero, so this team would probably be called, what's he called? Urshak? I'd make a team called Urshak, I'd put him in it, and then in his settings, I can just apply these, we call them generic scripts, you know, and that basically means the AI will, every now and again, just check whether that script can be fired, and once it can, he'll do it. So effectively, he'll use his powers as soon as he can. You can make that more specific by adding extra caveats to the conditions, so you could say, fire that power when it's ready. You could also say fire that power when it's ready and you're, 10 feet from Frodo. So you add this complexity to it. And although it's a very simple system, by adding those extra conditions, which is what we call the terms that trigger whether a script fires or not, you can add more of those conditions and build up the complexity. Case in point is Saruman in Orthanc. He uses similar generic scripts. Very easy way of getting them to use their powers. There we have it. Not too difficult to fight. You've got to be careful your hobbits don't get killed. And in fact, I scripted it so they run away when the fight starts, because otherwise they can get overwhelmed, and it was a bit cruel.
Sauron had the ring.
So they do retreat out of battle. One thing I should point out is the textures. Matt, the Lego man, who's on the team, made up these Lothlorien textures with the roots, and they're real standouts for me. Before I had very sort of boring looking rivers, but once you put them in there, it pops for me. It made a big difference. And the guys obviously made these custom trees, these Malon trees, which give it that feeling. And though the level is not my favourite, the setting, the lighting, and everything, I think it's such a difference from Moria. The dark oppressiveness of Moria to go to something bright and seemingly airy at times. Some of the forests can be a bit claustrophobic. You do get this open space and a bit more movement freedom than we've had in going through Moria and such. I should probably purchase a power. There's not much else I can really get as much use. I've got all of these. I might get the money. I've never actually bought the money in the campaign before. It might be useful. Only one more group of elves we can find. Who are up here. That's a very fun kind of extra objective you can put in levels. People like finding troops. It gives you a bonus objective, something quite tangible, a reason to do it. An actual unit you can use in a fight later on. They're the really good kind of objectives. This battle can be very tricky because the AI are basically very keen to kill this guy here, Rumil, one of Haldir's brothers. So you've got to be quite careful that you don't let them swarm him, because they will go for it. This troll in particular will demolish him. So,
what do you mean?
Thankfully now we have Radagast, you can kind of... My god, where the hell are they going? Where are they going? They're going round. Oh no. You need to get away from these people. Radagast, you go kill them. Stupid AI, honestly. Who scripted this? Get him. You want to bring all your men together here as soon as you can, just to make sure you're not completely caught off guard. But when these maps are basically balanced for using no powers, no spellbook powers, because I think it's only probably because we didn't have them when we were making it. You know, they came in relatively late, a lot of them, so I couldn't balance for them. But that does mean you don't have to worry too much about getting things like Radagast and stuff. They can be there as optional things if you are struggling. But you can challenge yourself to use the whole campaign without summoning a damn thing. You know, that is possible. Absolutely possible. Another example is the Amon Henfight. Aragon never had his faithful protector power. You had the whole thing without that. If anybody's played that level, which is the next part in this series, you'll know how hard that battle can be. So, yeah, there were a few brave souls who had to balance it without that power. Here we are, the contentious Lothlorien. With, you know, we're going through a tree. Oh no, we just missed it, that's alright. Again, I did this in another similar level, the one I described earlier, the standalone map. But we can't do two meetings. We have this initial meeting where we disagree. You know, we have the introduction, and then it's quite quickly onto the fact that Lothlorien is under attack, and we need to actually defend the place. We do a strange thing here, which I quite like. We leave the hobbits with Galadhon,
sure that coming here was a good idea.
which is the first time we really get a break from having to worry about them. That's not explicitly true, though, because they can still be attacked. You have to make sure you don't abandon them. You know, you've got to make sure that you leave somebody there to protect them, because they can get completely overwhelmed just by the number of troops. If you miss a bridge and what have you, and you look away, they'll come up here and they'll attack the hobbits. And Galadriel will defend them, but the defense scripts, they aren't overly robust, so there'll be times where she might miss them or what have you. So it's always wise to get somebody else up there to help her defend. Another thing on this map that's useful to get if you are struggling is all the treasure that's around the map, and I find that using Haldir's brother, the one with the sword, is a good idea, because he's not got the most health, and in the actual fighting he's very easily overwhelmed, and it's not safe really having him out on the battlefield. So I always use him to go and find all the treasure. Maybe we might not see this, but Galadriel's well is here, and you can use it, and it does give you the ability to buy, you know, units faster, all kinds of things. It's a nice little area. Me and Matthias discussed at one point, if we ever did this mission again, it would probably be quite different. We'd use Galadriel's mirror in this little area to, like Council of Elrond, set up different scenes that you could see in the well, that kind of thing. You know what I mean? If we did it again, of course we wouldn't bloody do it again. We've got many more things we can do, and this level is fine. You know, I complain about it, but that's just because I was tired of doing it. You know, it really wore me down. But the fact people like it, you know, makes it worth it, because you can do all that, and you can, even if you don't necessarily like it, the fact somebody else does makes you think, well, I guess I did what I was meant to do. You know, I didn't ruin anything, you know, though I'm very fussy of my own opinion of it. Nobody else is, you know, upset about how it plays or anything like that. You know, which is, you know, good. It's lovely that people are so, you know, kind about it and courteous. Anyway, here we go. Here comes the battle. Music kicks in a minute. That horn's really cool, by the way. I really like that. So this battle is scripted in a way that makes me nervous. Basically, I avoided it for as long as possible. It uses constantly spawning units, which is scary, because if you do that wrong, you're basically setting your map up to have a huge number of units spawning constantly. If that goes wrong, then there's a concern it'll be too many, or they won't all come out, and someone gets stuck, and it will just build up and crash. I always fight against the idea of constant units, but you know, I did try it for this level, and it does work. Effectively, to control it, what you have to do is every time a team spawns, so every single horde, well, not necessarily, some teams are made up of 4 or 5 hordes. You give them a name, and those generic scripts we were talking about earlier, you give them one of those, which is a death counter. When they die, it takes away 1, basically, from an invisible counter. When you spawn a horde, you add 1. So you can physically count how many teams are on the map. So you can say if there's less than 5 teams in the north, spawn more teams, basically. And that self-controls the whole process. it's all about having either lots of teams of single hordes or several teams of bigger hordes, you know what I mean? And that balance is tricky to get right, but eventually you can kind of get to the point where you have it controlling itself and monitoring itself, so you don't have to worry too much. That's how we did it in the end, and I'm glad we did it, because it definitely works better than we had it before. Before it was a very wave-based, much like the first game, Battle of Middle-earth 1. You know, waves came to specific bridges and certain amounts, but bridge fighting isn't all that fun. It's kind of one-sided. The fact we've got archers and they don't, you know, means we're never really going to lose, because we can use the fact that it's a narrow space to funnel everything through a tiny area. You know what I mean? But having to control 3 bridges with only this many resources can be tricky.
Scour the forest.
Very tricky indeed.
And kill all the orcs. We must not let them befoul the
we're
woods
doing well.
for Mordor.
We've done an objective. At this point, we get control of Galadhon again. And at this point, I take the opportunity to push out.
Let your spirits be strong.
Oh my god, Idril, what the hell are you doing out there? You guys need to kill that troll before she's demolished. This is the thing, your heroes can really catch you off guard and cause you trouble.
We cannot linger here.
Yeah, this is the point where you've got to be able to move out and destroy these goblin caves before the enemy starts spawning again. But
For the Lady
that can be
Galadhon.
tricky when you're trying to hold off the enemy. And if you do let a bridge fall and they get up to the hobbits and kill them, you know, you will lose the level. That's it. Finito. So it's a bit stressful. But you know, you don't have to destroy the goblin caves in the first minute and 30 seconds. It just gives you a breather where the constantly spawning units will stop for you to actually get out there and get up into one of these
By the light of Arendelle.
get up to these barracks and start destroying them. Interesting thing about the barracks is they're not there when you start the level, because you could find them. Originally we had it so they were there as booby traps. If you found them early, they were unkillable and they got you. But that proved dodgy and irritating, so we ditched it. They're not there when you start the level.
No, you don't.
Get the hell away from that
Hope
woman.
is lost if we stay here. My duty lies with the Galadhon.
But the weird thing is with world building, you can't teleport a building. Buildings won't teleport properly. So you have to build them.
He shall not see daybreak.
I didn't want to do build plots because they look a bit obvious. So instead,
We will not let you defile
once the
our
battle
forest.
starts, I spawn a tiny goblin builder at each point. He builds the barracks. During that time, this area is impassable, so you can't walk up there and cheat the system. You can't get up there while they're building. When they're finished building, in these orientations, because you can control which direction they're built
Their
through
state of
scripting,
evil must end
all
here.
the builders are deleted, and then we reveal that they are now here. So they seemingly emerge
By the will of
from
Galadhon.
nowhere, which is as I wanted it to be. That
A
worked out
strategic
surprisingly well.
location.
Yeah, at this point I'm going to pull all my men back because there's no point defending 2 bridges. We don't need them. We just need to make sure the treehouse survives and the hobbits survive and what have you. I might save up for these Nandor or whatever. They're quite cool.
We must remain wary.
Let's get my elves out of the way.
Let's move on.
Galadriel's good to have out here, of course, because she's just incredibly powerful, and you can get swarmed out here sometimes. It's pretty dangerous. It's good to rush as fast as you can to get out of here. I think the saving grace of this mission for me at the moment is it's not too long. You know, it's a good length of a battle and moving around and stuff. Originally, this is down here is where the final bridge was, the southeast bridge, and nothing would attack it for in one iteration. It would remain very quiet, and eventually you just have this huge army that would turn up there and completely catch you off guard, because it seemingly looks like one bridge that they can't get to. That was, you know, an idea I had for an older map, and it was interesting, but yeah, it just proved like there was no real ability to control what happened. It just all caught you off guard, and you couldn't plan anything. So we moved the bridge around here. Eventually I succumbed to the please move the bridge requests, and I did it. After a lot of moaning, I can assure you I moaned an awful lot at that.
I sense evil may be near.
I was a grumpy monkey. I didn't want to do it. So at this point, the scripts that control these counters have to restart, and that can be a bit scary to do because you don't know how they ended. You know, what were the numbers when it finished? The way you control that is you have flags. So you have flags and counters. Counters are numbers, it's either above a certain level, below a certain level, equal to a certain level. A flag is just on or off. So we can have the script saying, yeah, spawn these when it's less than 5. We can also add a flag that says only spawn when
there are a few of us
battle started is true. So I say, here's the battle started. I tell the scripts to make the flag true, and then they can spawn. Then when we get to the interlude where it's meant to stop, I simply do one script that says flag battle started is false, and those scripts can no longer fire. And that way I have a very clean way of turning these spawning armies on and off. One script that says, you can fight, you can't fight. That's it. Without that, you have to disable scripts, and you have to do so many things. So counters and flags really are the keystone to getting these sorts of things to work. They're used constantly all over the place, particularly things like death counters. How many of these are dead and such. Treasures, bonus treasures, you say you've collected X many treasures. Every time you collect one, you add one to a counter, and when you've collected 9, I know I can trigger that script,
We just take the fight to them.
Nice and simple in its own way. Originally you didn't have these towers here, you just had the units, and it was a lot harder, because you couldn't just walk away and leave it, they would just rush across and get you. I like we added them in, because it made my life a hell of a lot easier testing the damn thing. Here we go, we're doing well. They're pretty much dead. There's not much of a threat once. I should add, the more of these you destroy, the fewer of the enemy waves will spawn. Again, I can control that with...
What do we have here?
I'm probably talking about this too much, but let's say there's 5 caves. I have a counter that says caves dead is 1, caves dead is 2, whatever. I can say certain ones only spawn when there's no dead caves, so I can basically control. I can slowly dwindle the numbers as more and more caves get destroyed. In simple terms. It isn't complicated, but scripts are dull in many ways. Just to give a bit of context as to how that kind of works. I don't think this goes away until you build something, does it? I'm not sure. Where are those cool dudes I built? Here they are. I love these guys.
Like the wind.
They're a neat design. They're one of my favourite things in Lothlorien, these dudes. I don't know who the hell they are, but they look awesome. The cloaks and everything across them, the cool hats with the feathers. Anyway.
The Northern Kingdom was destroyed long ago.
You can probably see the waves are a bit smaller now. There's still a lot of stuff because it is the final attack, but there's fewer goblins turning up than there were before. You get a bit of a break. Constant onslaught. Oh, we don't know, we're perfectly safe, aren't we?
Men of Gondor.
Yeah, we're fine. Once that last barracks is dead, we can get everybody together and we can push out and finish them off. But yeah, the key is to get out of Lothlorien while the battle is paused, because otherwise you can't get across those bridges as easily. You get stuck and held back by all sorts of problems. As I said in the beginning of the campaign, you can buy these, but they won't be able to be used, so you may as well invest in a lone tower or something like that, What does a lone tower look like? I've never actually spawned it. Oh my god. Well, that couldn't look less fitting, but, it is a tower. Does it shoot people? Oh, so it does. Gondor's come to our aid. That's quite funny. Good though, I'm glad it works.
This way.
Kill them, finish them off. I can do Radagast as well. See, I'm using all the spellbook powers, I'm just cheating. I love the fact these guys do this, just punch each other. Such a cool little idle behaviour. Get them. Excellent, destroy the goblin camps. So if I look at my objectives now, yeah, advance all elven heroes to level 3. I'm not going to do that because Haldir's brother is, I've restricted him from fighting, I've grounded him from doing that. That's not dead. Finish it off, Galadhon. Difficult to know when these buildings are dead. The scripts get quite confused because I don't think these things are the same thing as the barracks, so it thinks they're dead even when they're rubble, That kind of stuff really confuses. Pushes World Builder to its limits. You can only do so much. But it's not essential they're fully dead.
If Sauron had the ring, we would know.
As long as the objective says it's done, it's done. Here we go, finishing off the trolls. I think the battle is now the right amount, length, everything. I think it was a good idea once. I can't remember who it was. Whoever suggested that probably Matthias, that you have to go out and destroy the barracks during the Goblin caves, we call them, during the battle.
We must wait for cover of
It
darkness.
broke up the whole thing. Because my fear is because you could make this level Helm's Deep. That's the truth. You have a fortress, you have onslaught of enemies, you have to defend it, you've got walls, all that stuff. My fear is that every battle can turn, every defense can turn into Helm's Deep. Because there's only so much you can really do. And I know anything like Helm's Deep will take months and months. You've got to be able to hold back and accept when and where you can, diversify.
Yet 9 there were set out from
This cinematic added,
Tell me where
didn't
is
have it
Gandalf?
originally. The
For I
end
much
level just
desire to speak
went
with
black, screen
He
spun
was
and ended.
taken by both shadow and flame.
But as we started adding more and more, this is when I really wanted to get in there.
For we went needlessly into
And
the
it's one
net
of those
of
situations where we paint the dark
Needless
lighting
were none of the deeds
and
of
then apply
Gandalf
a
in
blue
life.
filter over the top of that. And
We
then
do not yet know his
I
full
believe it's
purpose.
described as bloom lighting. Everything kind of glows.
What now becomes of this fellowship?
There's scripts that can turn that on and off. So if you see,
Gandalf hope
this isn't on the map. This is off the map. This area
The
to the
quest
north
stands upon
It's
the
an
edge
identical
of a
clone
knife.
of the exact same
Stray
spot,
but a little and it will
so
fail
that it matches up. You know.
to the ruin of all.
So there's actually 2 clones of the
Yet
same
hope
spot on the map.
remains,
Um,
while company
one
is
dark
true.
and one in light.
Do not let your hearts be troubled,
And I'm
Go
so
now
so
and
pleased you put it in.
rest.
It's one of my favourite
for
cinematics
you
we
are
added.
weary with sorrow
Dialogue
and
is
much
lovely, and the map props look brilliant. And this next bit, we get to see all the Fellowship in their cloaks, which the guys, they made these models, they added these
Never before
different
clad
versions,
strangers in the garb of
and I love that we can highlight, the detail
these cloaks
that they
help
went to.
shield you from
Gimli, don't
unfriendly
throw an
eyes.
axe and ruin all the lovely exposition and my chatting.
Farewell, Frodo Baggins.
But there we have it. That little scene to me.
I give you
it has
the light
I should
of
note, it
Erin.
has a very unique
May
Aragon.
it be a light for you.
It's Aragon with
in
his
dark
his
places,
Boromir gauntlet things.
when all other
And that's literally
lights
just for that one
go out.
scene with his cloak and without those Boromir pieces. Ridiculous level of detail. Carl did that for me, and he's a brilliant man for it. And there we have it. That was Lothlorien in its entirety, and I do hope you liked it, because it was definitely a struggle, but so far nobody's complained to me about it. There's been issues with bugs potentially, though I don't know if those are founded. If you do find any, you're welcome to report them to me. I can always fix things in patches and stuff like that, so it's worth telling me if you do find anything. But yeah, that was that. Where are we going to next? I think it's the next part. There it is. One of the easiest levels to script, this next one, and maybe one of the standouts for you. Maybe it definitely is a good one for me. But yeah, I'll see you in the next part, the final part. But thank you for joining me again. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks very much.